Hello students, how are you? I'm sure you're doing fine and still learning. So in this video, I want to share you one of the ways to create a persuasive speech. This is something that is done by many people, that has been done by many people, many famous people, and this method is called Monroe's motivated sequence. So Monroe's motivated sequence is a set of stages or steps to create a persuasive speech to persuade people to do some action or to inspire people to do some action. This is used not only in speech but also has been used in advertisements. For example, this method, Monroe's motivated sequence, was created by Alan Monroe, an American psychologist in 1930s. This method consists of 5 stages of persuasive speech, which is the attention, or where you grab the audience attention with the hook, and then need, where you state a problem, and then satisfaction, where you offer a solution, and then visualization, where you describe to the audience the benefits of this solution, and also lastly, action. This is where you call for an action from the audience. Let's take a look at the steps one by one. So the first step of making persuasive speech is the attention getter. So in here, you're going to state a hook. A hook is something that grabs your audience attention, that makes their head turns, that makes their concentration is on you. You can do this by showing statistics or facts or personal stories, or maybe anecdotes of some people that you know, or the anecdotes or stories from people that you can find in the news or in the internet, but those are real stories. Also, you can also pose rhetorical questions, for example, to your audience, or you can use humor. Although for the last one, humor, you have to be really careful. You have to really understand the context of humor, because humor can also be sensitive and it can also be offensive if received by unintended audience. People can perceive it differently. So no matter what kind of hook that you choose, the suggestion is that you choose something shocking, something unique, and something that really can grab the audience attention. Let's take a look at the example made by Nuha in the following video.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with a powerful quote. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, once said, "If change is resisted or delayed too long, violence will erupt here and there, not because people plan it, but because of accumulated discontent that eventually explode violently." These words remind us that delaying change is not an option, especially in the world of education, where millions of children with disabilities are still denied their full right. And today, I would like to call on all of us for one very important cause about the right of children with disabilities to appropriate, inclusive, and supportive education. Because proper education is the right for all children without exception.
The next thing that you should do is to describe clearly, vividly, the problems at hand, the problems that you are going to convince your audience as existing and is related to them. So make sure that you define and vividly describe the issue, and then to do that, to convince that the issue is real, give real life examples. Also, statistics, numbers, it always helps to convince people that something is real. But you, once again, have to be very careful in finding your data. Make sure that you choose data or statistic from reliable sources. The sources are valid, and it's not something that is just bombastic for no reason, but it comes from a source that is eligible. So make sure that in your speech you also mention where you get the data. And also don't forget to, in this part, to relate that problems to your audience. Make sure that your audience understand that this problem is also about them, that this is not something that is far away from them, that they also need to be to have a concern on this. Now let's take a look at Nuha's example again on this part.
Now, let's look to the unfortunate reality where millions of children with disabilities still do not receive proper and inclusive education. According to the UNESCO data from 2020, more than 19% of children with disabilities in developing countries do not complete their primary educations. This means most of them miss out on opportunities to get a better future. This is not because they are unable to learn, but because our education system has not been able to cater their specific needs. Many teachers have not been trained to recognize and accommodate children with the different learning needs. So, these children are often perceived as slow, lazy, or even ignorant. This is very similar to Isham's story in the Indian film Tari Zameen Par that I watched last night. He was misunderstood and punished just because his learning difficulties. However, when he found a teacher who understood and supported him, his life changed drastically for the better. If we allow this inequality to continue, this means we are not only denied them the right to learn, but also betraying our values of justice and humanity. Imagine if those children are our family, our friends, or even our relatives. Would we be compelled to ensure they get a proper and supportive education? Because this is not just about human rights, but also the future of our nations.
Okay, so the next step after you have described or explained the problems, you can then offer a solution. So you offer some satisfaction to your audience. So what you can do is first, briefly state what you want the audience believe or do, or what your audience could do to help solving the problem. So you also need to explain the detail of how the solution works. Say it step by step, but make sure that you say or you inform this in a simple manner. And also provide the evidence if you can. Try to get evidence where this solution has been done somewhere in probably different situation or different context, because that will convince your audience that this is not something that only comes from your imagination, but this is based on past success. You can also, if possible, you can also state the objection that some people might have with this solution, and you can refute that. In that way, it shows the audience that you have considered different sides of the story or different perspectives, and that means you have done your research. Let's take a look at the example.
So, how can we change this? The solution is simple. We need inclusive educations that adapt to the needs of all of children. According to a 2020 UNESCO report, inclusive education is proven to learning outcomes of children with disabilities and reduce discriminations in the school environments. Teachers who receive specialist training are able to recognize the unique needs of each student and implement the differentiated learning methods.
Okay.
The real-life experiences in the film Tari Zameen Par also show how the support of people with dyslexia. Teachers allow Ishan to grow into a creative and confident child, not because he was fixed, but because of inclusive and supportive environments. Therefore, we must do, first, specially train teachers to deal with the children's specific needs. Second, creating a welcoming and adaptive classroom environment. And third, build a school culture that accepts and supports all children. And now, you might ask, who should start this change? The third is, change must begin from the top by the government and institutions, but it will be useless without our support on the ground, because a friendly learning environment is not shaped by laws alone, but by the hands and hearts of teachers, classmates, and all surrounding community. So, while the government paves the way, we also walk in it.
Now, after you propose the solution, present to your audience the benefits or the results that might be positive of this solution to your audience. Try to make your audience believe that this is beneficial also for them. And what is the danger if, or the consequences if this solution is not taking any place. Now, you can start with stating the negative results of inaction and then reveal the positive outcome of the solution. Try to use the language that is vivid and also the language that is more sensory. Use sensory languages that appeals to five senses, which is the touch, the sound, the taste, the sight, and also the smell. Yeah, so try to use sensory language, like imagine this, try to create a vivid imagination of the future, what the future might bring with your solution. Of course, try to convince them more on the positive side. Let's take a look at the example.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a dyslexic child walk into a classroom and then the teacher knows how to guide him. He's not scolded for being a slow learner, but helped with the visual method and appropriate exercises. His friend knows he just learned differently. They encourage him, not ridicule him. And little by little, he started to gain the confidence. And he was willing to raise his hand, and finally he did it. Not because he changed, but because the environment changed with him. And this reminds me of a Helen Keller story, who was blind and deaf at a very young age. People thought that she would never ever learn anything. But then came her teacher, Anne Sullivan. With the kindness, patience, and never giving up, Anne slowly taught Helen how to communicate. And that moment changed everything. Helen went on to become a famous writer and speaker. She proved with the right support, anyone can grow, no matter the conditions, no matter their challenges.
Lastly, to end your persuasive speech, make sure you call for an action. This is probably like the most important part of your speech, because this is the gong, this is the end where you're going to leave the impression to your audience. So this part is called action, where you call on action to your audience to do the steps that they can do, something simple, something doable that they can do. And this is where you also want to give your audience to feel they own this. Like, this is something that they should do. This is also something that they, this is their duty. This is something that they should not ignore. Okay, and you can end the speech with a memorable statement. You can probably quote from a famous people, or maybe use some of the words that you create yourself that will be like lasting to your audience mind. Okay, let's take a look at example from Nuha.
It is not a dream. It is not a dream to be a society where everyone is productive, where everyone can achieve something, no matter their conditions, no matter their challenges. And yes, it can happen if we are willing to take an action. Therefore, the right of children with disabilities to education is not optional. It is our collective moral obligations. And yeah, today I invite all of you, if you are a teacher, prepare to teach to all kinds of students, not just the easy one. If you are a student, be a supportive friend. And if you are a leader, push for the policies that support inclusive education and teacher training. Please don't wait until more children feel like the world was not made for them. They don't need to be pitied, they just need to be understood. And let us realize that education is truly for all, not just in paper, but in a real classroom. Let's fulfill the right and be happy together. Thank you and have a good day.
Okay, so we have learned the 5 stages of Monroe's motivated sequence to build a strong persuasive speech. Use these 5 stages or 5 steps when you have to do a public speaking where you have to be persuasive or inspire people to do good action. Now, remember the 5 stages. The first one is the attention, where you grab the audience attention by a strong hook. The second one is the need, where you state your problems that are convincing and based on facts and statistics. The third one is the satisfaction, where you offer solutions that is doable and realistic. And then the fourth one is visualization, where you mention the possible benefits that your audience can get and how the inaction can be dangerous. And the last one is call for action, which is basically the aim or the goal of a persuasive speech. So I hope you, with these 5 stages, you can make a great speech and something that can really convince others to do an action. A successful speech that will inspire people. Good luck and keep learning. Bye.